listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Get on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
There's no human being I'd rather be talking to right now than Craig Breslow.
Is that true?
People ask that, and I mean it every time. It is true. It is true.
How many different people have you said that there's nobody that you would prefer to
How many
talk
people
to
have I
more?
had on the podcast? Yeah. Well, however many, I do it, but I don't want to get too far into it. But my point is that when I sit down and talk, this is what I love doing. I love talking to people. It also jacks me up for the conversation. Right? Let's go. It also brings a smile to everyone's face.
It does. I mean,
don't you like hearing that?
Yeah, flattery works. It works every time.
All right. So I am interested, from a decision maker, a president of baseball operations, chief baseball officer, GM, whatever, whoever we may talk to. You get to this point in spring training. Last year was your first time doing it. How does this feel different? Because last year was sort of you were doing your best to build your first team. Now you basically have 2 years to build your second team. How does this feel different as we go into the regular season?
Yeah, I think we're better positioned, just because I've got a year's worth of experience under my belt, but I also have a year's worth of relationships and conversations, and I understand better how folks in the office think about things, how our coaching staff thinks about things, how AC thinks about things, and so we've been able to have dialogue going back to October. We've got the information about players who have taken a step forward last year. We've been able to watch them over the course of a full season. We obviously made some additions this off season, but I just think that the conversation has been far more candid and open and frequent. And also, I think at this point, a lot of the roster, outside of maybe a handful of spots, is pretty self-evident. As a result of that combination of what guys have done last year and who we've brought in.
You had said, and I've recited this to you a couple different times, which I liked. You wanted to be more aggressive and more decisive, more decisive in the off season. And obviously, you make some big moves, and you had the plan laid out. And there can be bobbing and weaving all over the place. But as it landed, you're never gonna. I know the answer is you're never gonna get what everything you want. But if you said at the beginning of the off season to where you sit now, we'd say, okay, I accomplished pretty much what I want. And if that wasn't the case, what did you feel like you fell short on in accomplishment, with the understanding that it's a long season?
Sure. So, we will be talking about the success or failures of the season in 10 months based on the number of games that we win, right? And that's appropriate, that's right, that's how things should be. What we evaluate today is, where did we see the greatest opportunity to improve our team, and did we go out and address those things? I think the answer to that question today is we did. But I'm sure we got some things wrong. I'm sure there are going to be guys who surprise us in both directions, but from the standpoint of wanting to add depth and quality to the rotation, wanting to rebuild the back end of the bullpen, improve the infield defense, get a right-handed bat, I think you could go through and say, hey, we've checked those boxes. Now we have to go out and we have to perform and execute.
So, part of that is obviously, it's been a really interesting spring training. Honestly, thank you for that. No, I mean, it's okay, it's interesting because you have new notable guys, and you've had these 3 prospects. I know you have other prospects, but we get a chance to see them play. It's not coming in the 7th inning in Lakeland. It's
right.
So, the 3 prospects, that was part of this. You have an idea of what a first-time Major League camp looks like. You've seen guys in first-time Major League camps. It can go either way. How did you feel with Kristian Campbell, with Marcelo Mayer, and Roman Anthony went?
Yeah, well, I think while it's easy to lump the three of them together, it's also important to talk about them as three individuals.
Yeah,
right?
that's
because
what I want you to do that. Yeah.
Well, they all had kind of different camps. They play different positions largely. I think they are three uniquely talented players, but they all have a game that's kind of unique to each of them. And so there are certain things that stand out, whether we talk about the maturity of Roman as a 20-year-old in his first big league camp, and we all saw in the breakout game just how hard he can hit the ball, and his approach in the box is very, very mature. And Marcelo's a guy that I think a lot of people didn't really know what to expect, given some injuries have kept him off the field at times, and he stepped right in and looked like he belonged and fit in, and he's got a confidence about him, in addition to being a really, really talented player. And then last year at this time we would have never been talking about Kristian, right? And now he comes into camp and has a chance to win a job, and we see the athleticism, we see the tools, and I think you've kind of seen the trajectory from when he first showed up at camp and was probably pressing a little bit and was starting to swing at pitches outside the zone, which is something that we just don't see from him, up until, think about yesterday and having, a handful of really good at-bats, the ball that he hit to center that was an out, but I think maybe laid the foundation for the next at-bat when he hit a ball out the other way. And so I think it's a great experience for all of those guys, because, it's their first extended exposure to a major league environment. And I think every one of those should kind of, regardless of how things land, walk away understanding that they have the talent, the ability to perform at the major league level, and also there's plenty of development that still needs to happen.
To go with Kristian, when did you feel like it turned for him? And because I watched, I watched way too many spring training innings, right? And I saw it. Like, I saw that kid's pressing. He's swinging it a lot. He's swinging and missing a lot. That isn't his game. And then it did seem like it turned for him a little bit. And not the finished product, but still.
Right. And I don't know that I would say we could point to a particular play and say, like, okay, the switch just turned. I think it was a series of incremental improvements, whether it was a couple really, really good defensive plays he made at second base a couple weeks ago, and then the play that he made in Minnesota when Buxton tried to stretch a ball down the line into a double, and then turning a double play, and then a good at bat that ended up in a walk, and then a good at bat that ended up in a line out. Finally, a good at bat that ended up in a home run. Right? Like, I don't know that it was this single moment in time as opposed to a process, and I think that's what you should expect for 22-year-old kids.
But like, I obviously hadn't seen him play a lot. You see him play on video, but you don't get a chance to. This is the most you've seen him play, right? Mm-hmm. And so, was there a point in time? Like you say, it's not like a moment, right, but hey, this could work. Like, this could work. I've seen it's still a work in progress, but this could work.
Well, I think that's true of all three of those guys.
Yeah.
Like I said, camp was a different opportunity for each of them, just based on the positions that they play, the experience, the age, all of the expectations, all of those things. But if you see any of those guys work, whether that's in defensive work before a game, in the cages, like, hey, this can work.
And when you look at the potential of a guy like Kristian playing second base in Major League, with the understanding there is a work in progress, and I overly cite the Pedroia in 2007, mm-hmm, right? But you've seen instances like that, right? Is that something you say, hey, listen, you don't have to win Rookie of the Year, any of these guys, or I'm focused on Kristian, but you don't have to win Rookie of the Year, right?
Yeah, I think Alex probably said it best, or he talked about kind of young guys coming up and being complementary pieces and not feeling like they needed to shoulder the entirety of the responsibility for the success of the team. And I think that's what a well-balanced roster does, right? Is like, whether it's Kristian or Roman or Marcelo, we're going to be able to try and ease the transition as best we can, because we have guys like Rafi and Alex and Jaron and others.
Which not every organization can. I go back to, again, the Pedroia thing. He hit ninth. It's okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yep. So that's a good thing. An oddly specific thing, but something that you can answer, or you can't, or maybe you won't. the last week of spring training, you put Marcelo Mayer at second base. He hadn't played there. He hadn't barely worked out there. So that sent up into a tizzy for a day or whatever, until a day and a half. What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, I think the thinking was, he was a guy who, like I said, coming in, the organization didn't have a chance to see him play a ton, just given injuries that kept him off the field. But he acclimated very, very quickly, and he looked super comfortable, and we want to give ourselves as much flexibility and as many options as possible, and felt like, hey, you know what, this guy's earned a chance to see what it looks like at second. We know, he came up as a shortstop. We know he can play defense, and I think we saw that and felt like the transition would be pretty easy. But our job, our commitment is to put the best team on the field, and if that means, Marcelo getting reps outside of shortstop.
It was a day. It was a day.
It was a day. And it looked good.
It did look good. That's my point. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So I don't know. It's just I try. We all listen. We all try to figure this stuff out. This is
Right.
what we do. Right. But that was as many spring trainings as I've seen. That was a tough one for me to figure. I liked it. I'm not going to lie to you. He looked good, but it was a day. So anyway, you're not going to answer. That's fine. It's depth. Just say depth. Yeah, it's deep depth. You talk about the things that you didn't. Last year there was so much to do, and this year there's still so much to do. And last year you signed a couple of guys to extensions too. In your new position, you hadn't had to do that. You haven't had to approach agents and players with this dynamic, which is such an important dynamic. And obviously Crochet is the guy at the top of the mountain when it comes to this. What has been your experience when talking to these guys? I know everybody's different, but it is a very weird thing. Not weird, but interesting thing, I guess. Trying to get locked up. The Atlanta Braves did it, right? We always cite that.
Right.
From your perspective over the last 2 years, what have you learned about it, approaching extensions?
Yeah, no, I think what I have learned is that every one of them is a unique case, and players make decisions for all types of reasons, and players are in very different stages of their careers and their personal lives, and some people are thinking about their families and stability, and others are thinking about financial security, and then you're thinking about a combination of all of those things. But I think what we as an organization can do to position ourselves as strongly as possible is to create this winning environment, to ensure that our players feel like they've got the resources here, they feel like they're taken care of and invested in, so that this is a place where guys want to spend a significant majority or the entirety of their career.
But you have to sell that in spring training, not for the guys who have already been here, but a guy like Garrett, it was like you have to basically, it's not like you're shipping them up to, hey, let's take a duck tour of Boston,
Right. No, that's true. But players are perceptive, and I think they recognize the direction that the organization is headed and where we stand, maybe relative to other teams in the league in terms of the strength and depth of our young players, the emergence of this core, and I think. Guys who decide to sign extensions here do so because they love Boston and they love the organization and they want to win, and they feel like this is the perfect marriage of both of those.
You've been very generous for your time. Last question. I'm anxious to, from your perspective, to say which is more difficult from an executive's point of view. This comes back to getting uncomfortable and being decisive. Making an enormous trade or making an enormous signing. Both are different levels of uncomfortable. Different. You have to be decisive in both. Both are hugely important parts of organizations. Now that you've gone through both of those, I'm very anxious to get your response.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, the more uncomfortable is the big trade, because that one kind of has a chance to beat you multiple times in multiple ways, right? Like there's always the chance that the player that you are bringing in struggles, or isn't what you thought he was going to be, or the environment in Boston is not the best one for the player, and that is in and of itself really, really concerning. In one case, in the case of the signing, the kind of cost is the dollars, of course, and potentially the opportunities to have used them differently. But in trades, there's the dollars still, but there's also the players that you give up, and
Which you see the best in, by the way.
always,
Right?
Always,
Yeah.
right. And so you kind of have that chance to be beaten on two fronts, where potentially the player that you bring in, is not what you thought, and also the players that you send out go on to have incredibly successful careers. Now, when you make big trades, like I think your baseline has to be that you are giving up really talented players in order to bring somebody in. And so, when we think about the Crochet trade, like those guys that we gave up, I'm pretty confident are going to be good big leaguers. But we needed to make a move that was best for our organization at this moment in time.
Have you ever had that feeling after you say yes? I don't even know how that works. Like, you say yes, and he says, and Chris Getz says yes. Like, ever had that?
I think you kind of go in with at least this one, because, and I know a lot has been documented about this trade, but like because we had so many conversations, I think we had a pretty good idea of where the yes was. So I don't know that any side was caught by surprise that the deal was made, but certainly in the direct aftermath of that, you start thinking about where this goes and who these guys are and what they could become. And absolutely.
You've been following what they've been doing?
I do, of course.
Yeah. It's just like when a player gets traded for someone, he follows who. Like Kopech was telling me that. He's like, yeah, of course. Like, I follow Chris Sale, what he's doing. Yeah.
Sure, and we obviously have multiple seasons that we'll use to evaluate this, but I think the most important part is Garrett has come in. He's embraced the organization. He's embraced what we're trying to do in terms of helping him, and hopefully he can carry into the season the momentum he's built this spring.
Stay safe in Mexico. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it, Rob.